Tesla bots are kind of a big deal, and for that matter, even though it was roundly criticized and mocked a couple years ago, bots themselves are now kind of a big deal. But it's kind of a blind spot for me, so I went ahead and brought in an expert of sorts. He may not agree with that, but you can make a decision for us and find out. I got Cern Basher here. I'm Brian. Welcome to Futuraza. How's it going, Cern?
I am great, Brian. I'm great. I'm not sure that putting numbers in a spreadsheet makes me an expert, but if it does, then so be it.
Well, where do experts put numbers if not spreadsheets? Uh,
Exactly.
yeah. And I've seen plenty of people who call themselves experts who don't use spreadsheets, and it doesn't work out great for them. Their predictions don't tend to be based in fact. Otherwise, you use some math. Bots, boundless optimist transformation at scale. This is your slide here. Tell me a little bit about bots. What's going on?
Well, the bottom line is that bots are going to be the world's biggest industry one day. And if that sounds absolutely crazy, I'll explain why.
Please. Well, that's the thing is every disruption made similar claims and every disruption was right. I mean, if you'd told someone in 1980 that the next wave was going to be information and you could try and explain that DARPA net thing is actually going to become so ingrained in every minute of your life that you will have a device in your pocket that never leaves your side, that is attached to you in ways no other object you've owned ever was or could be. It's there when you wake up, it's there when you go to sleep, it's with you in the bathroom, and it has contains the sum of human information available at the moment. This is transformative, this is big. So there you go.
This is transformative. Yeah. And speaking of transformation, if you just flip to the next slide, there was this guy on YouTube. He had this channel called My Tesla Weekend, and he used to track the expansion of the Gigafactory in Texas.
Mm-hmm.
And this guy was kind of crazy, but he would divide the factory up into squares, and he would track the completion percentage of each of these little squares. And I haven't seen much of him lately, but I'm pretty sure that bots have probably put him out of work. Bots could probably do this
Yeah.
a lot faster.
Maybe so. Maybe so. So those are my charts. I am formerly My Tesla Weekend. And when I made these early on, boy, was I crazy. You must be crazy. You're either way too optimistic or way too pessimistic. The real hard part was figuring out how to make the equations actually work. So what I would do is uh, I figured out how to divide it up into measurements, grading, foundation, walls, roof, and final roof decking, and then how to balance each of those. And I came out to accurate within about 2 weeks, even though there was only maybe a couple dozen vertical columns when I started. And as you can see from the one on the left there wasn't even that much groundwork completely done, foundations even in. They were still pushing dirt around. And the numbers are the numbers. They just don't lie. So I was very pleased with how that worked out. And when there is another Gigafactory, I will absolutely cover it again. And I don't know, if I can get a bot to replace me, I'll be all about that. Then I can focus on my real passion, being an OnlyFans model. No, I don't think that's right.
No.
So we've got
So
some labor choices here.
yeah, so let me just first say that those videos that you did back then totally captivated me. My wife thought that I was crazy to watch them, week after week. But I found it absolutely fascinating to watch Giga Texas grow, and with your overlay, that was great. So thank you for that.
Yeah, and people, my family thought I was crazy because I'd pop a video on, and they'd be like, they'd see me mumbling and go, "Are you counting?" Yeah, I'm counting. I'm counting squares. It's what I do.
So now that the factory's built, you might imagine that the company, in this case Tesla, has a choice how to, what kind of labor should they employ to build the things the factory makes.
Hmm.
So as it stands right now, they have three choices. They could employ monkeys.
Hmm.
Monkeys, they have the benefit of being very cheap. They will work literally for peanuts.
Yeah.
But as you can imagine, monkeys may not be the most reliable workforce,
Hmm.
right? The other option is human labor. And human labor is great, but human labor also has its issues. One of the issues there is pictured in image number 2, the leader of the UAW. So that's an issue for other automakers. Maybe not so much Tesla just yet, but maybe in the future that's a bigger issue.
Motor Trend Person of the Year right there.
That's right. That's
I,
right.
I mean, he's historic. He will be remembered for what he has done.
Yes. And history may not look kindly on him. We shall
No.
see. And then the third option is industrial robots. And so you can imagine that Tesla would look at these options and say, okay, what makes the most sense? And as we know, they have filled the factory with as many industrial robots as makes sense, not as possible, but as what makes sense. There are also many human employees in the factory. And I don't think there are any monkeys. I haven't seen any, but I'm pretty sure they're not drawing from that labor pool.
I will check with my sources and let you know.
Thank you. So on the next slide, though, we are about to enter a phase where we will have 4 choices of labor sources. And the fourth one is humanoid robots. And so companies, every single company that makes anything that uses physical labor to any degree will have this choice in the coming years. And so today we'll talk a little bit about what that looks like. So the clever robots are coming.
Hmm.
And we already have, we're tracking about 21 different humanoid robots right now. Some of them are pictured on this slide. Tesla's humanoid robot Optimus is the largest image in this collage. And we have a few others. Just below Tesla to the left there is Figure AI, Figure 1, their robot. Uh, Above Tesla's robot there on the top left is Agility's robot called Digit. And then Aptronic on Tesla's right shoulder, and then below is Sanctuary AI's robot. So there are many robot companies in the US, and there are also many other companies, but mostly they're in China.
Hmm. And again, it was only 2 years ago that Tesla was saying, look, robots are going to be the future. And a lot of critics said, you're crazy. You know, why? I mean, Honda's had their little robot out for 20 years and nobody cares. And it's because that little robot was just a demonstration of really actuators and balance device. That's really all it was. It was on rails. It was pre-programmed, and the missing ingredient was the brain. And the brain is what Tesla's trying to bring. All they had to do was get something up to speed quick enough that could actually employ the brain. And it the progress was so quick that everyone looked at it and said, ah, it's time.
Everybody likes to talk about the so-called Chat GPT moment, and I think we all personally experience with the large language model, but that really just signals that AI is here to stay, and AI was going to be a driver of many things. And it turns out it will be a driver of the development of humanoid robots as well.
For sure.
So, what I'd like to do today is take a crack at answering these questions, or at least a few of these questions. So, why do we need bots in the first place? What are their advantages? What is useful work? What are these bots going to do? How big is the market opportunity for bots? How many bots can we make per year? How much will it cost? How much will it cost to both make and use a bot? What does the business model look like for the bot makers, Tesla and others? And then how much might the bot industry be worth? And I'll give you a hint there, it's in the trillions.
It's got to be. Well, while we're looking at this list, I will point out we will probably break this video into 2 parts, maybe even 3, because there is a little bit of ground to cover here. And if we trimmed it to a minute a topic, I think that overview would be at such a high level as to not be very helpful. So, global labor shortage.
Yeah, so one of the issues is that, most people worry about bots taking over their jobs. And while that may be the outcome eventually, we're a long way from that. Corn Ferry estimates that by 2030 there'll be 85 million jobs that will be unfilled because there are not enough skilled people to take them. Right? We all know about the demographic challenges in China, in Japan, Italy, and other countries, and so there will be a shortage of people to do the work. We need humanoid bots to fill those roles.
Absolutely agree. The big thing I see is a lot of people already getting concerned that these will steal jobs that they want. And it's going to start by doing jobs that can't be filled. It's going to move on to filling jobs that no human should be doing for safety reasons. Hazardous waste cleanup would be one example. Um, Stopping the expansion of the Sahara Desert in Africa. That's a big program, and it is labor constrained because there are not enough bodies to push the shovels around. The funding is there, they just can't get it done, and the clock is ticking. The Sahara is very interested in expansion. Maybe we should stop that. And really, there are a lot of jobs that just don't exist. So, for example, I've seen seniors who were forced to leave their homes and go to a facility because they were just over the edge of what they could handle on their own and could not afford to hire someone to to bridge that gap. If we can let seniors stay in their homes another 6 months, a year, not only will it create less burden on the network we have now, but it will allow these people freedom and allow them to stay in the world that they know. And it's not replacing a worker because very few of these people can afford to do it in the first place. Please continue.
Exactly. And to your earlier point about jobs that we shouldn't do on the next slide, there are a lot of jobs in the world that are dangerous and deadly. In the United States, 5 to 6,000 people die from work-related injuries every year, and another, 2.5 to 3 million people suffer non-fatal work-related industries. So,
Mm-hmm.
there is a lot of jobs out there that really people shouldn't be doing. And if you look back in history, that's also the case. We have replaced a lot of very dangerous jobs over time with technology, and that's just something that we should expect.
And you've seen those brilliant heavy equipment pieces that do the logging now that will chop down a tree, debranch it, and do it all in 30 seconds. A job that used to be a lot of very dangerous man hours of work. Uh, but there are additional parts of it that can still be automated.
That's right. And among the most dangerous jobs in the world, if you look at the chart there on the right, the logging worker is at the top of the list.
Right,
So there's a case in point right there of we should be working very hard to eliminate those jobs because they're very, very dangerous.
right.
And other dangerous jobs, roofers, truck drivers, iron steel workers, fishing workers, farmers. I mean, there's just the list goes on and on of dangerous work.
Oh, sure does. Sure does.
The other big challenge for companies is turnover. So think about Walmart. Walmart has 2.3 million employees, and they have about 40 to 45% turnover every year. They have to replace 1 million workers every year. Think how costly that is, and the waste of resources that means. And it's not just Walmart; it's all these other companies, FedEx, it's the post office, it's so many different organizations. So turnover is a huge problem, and it costs companies a lot of money.
Training is expensive. Recruiting is expensive. Uh, yeah, severance can be expensive. And but really the problem is the training and and the fact that new people never know what they're doing and then they're gone and now it's new people.
Hmm. Yeah, so that's another good reason. And then on the next page, people steal things for some reason. So theft and fraud is also very costly. U.S. businesses are estimated to lose about $50 billion a year to theft. Apparently, the average dishonest retail employee costs their employer $1,500 a year. And then beyond that, something called time theft, people getting paid for hours that they didn't work. And apparently that's in the about $400 billion range in the United States.
Hmm. Hmm. And I've seen the number in the other direction where they're saying that employers engage in time theft, but both of those evaporate when it's a bot.
That's right.
And
That's right.
the theft thing is a good point. I think it would be hilarious to watch a robot try to steal something, because you'd have to go in the code and go, "What made you do that, buddy? What's going on here?" That's it's not how we do it, Bender.
Mm-hmm. So, to your earlier point too about technology taking jobs over time and changing things, this is actually normal. And one great example of this is the invention of the telephone. When the telephone was invented, you needed a person to physically connect the two lines. 1 year after the telephone was invented, switchboards were invented. Now, the interesting thing about this story is that it took a long time for switchboards to replace the switchboard operators. In fact, I think it was in the 1940s, 19, maybe 1930s, there were over 340,000 switchboard operators. Most of them were women. And the reason is that men, and particularly young boys that did this job, weren't particularly reliable. They would be a bit rowdy. And so an effort was made to find as many young women as they could who were reliable, would do this work, which was pretty tough, laborious work. And it became a massive industry. Well, the reason that this took so long was because the service that these women provided was so good. They would find the people, if they weren't available when the call came in, they would work to find the person. So if a call came in for a doctor, they might even know where the doctor was and track that person down. So they were kind of like personal assistants in some way. It was a very personalized service. And even though the technology was there to replace them, it took until after World War II, when wage rates went through the ceiling, did companies finally adopt the technology and replace all these workers. Now, a lot of people would have said this was a desirable job, well-paying job. These women had benefits. It was a good position to be in. Many of them were overworked, and there actually was a problem with suicide with these workers. So this is an interesting story, but the bottom line is if you push wages high enough, companies will look for alternatives. And this is a classic case in history of wages going high enough where suddenly they look for alternatives. Kind of reminds me of the UAW over the last year.
It sure does. And there were a lot of discussions early on in the days of automation. Are all these industrial robots going to be replacing us humans? And the answer is yes, because they have to, because they're better. They're forget cheaper. They're just better. They do a job consistently in ways that humans are just not good at. They fill a need in that regard. And with this, phone lines used to be very, very expensive. And
Mm-hmm.
I had to explain to my children the other day what long distance phone calls were, because the idea was so foreign to them.
Mm-hmm.
When you lived in, when I moved to Everett, Washington, I got rid of my landline in the 90s. And when I called to cancel my old number, they were like, "Where are you moving to?" I'm like, "That's kind of none of your business." Like, "Well, you need service." I said, "I work in Seattle. That's a long distance phone call away. It's not that far." It's crazy. So that was, yeah, long distance. Those are different days. And technology's made it possible.
That's right. And here's another story related to the first one. And I just want to thank my friend Joel for alerting me to the telephone operator story, and I dug into it because it was a very fascinating thing to research. But this is another one that was also interesting is tractors. The first tractor was invented in 1892, but it wasn't until, again, after World War II, did farmers really start to get rid of horses, and tractors became the dominant force of labor on farms. And again, it was because of the escalation in wages. So similar story to the telephone operator. So even though the technology was there, it wasn't deployed that widely until some years later. So again, if there's enough pressure on companies because of wages, they will look for alternatives. And as we'll see in a minute, there are plenty of opportunities for companies to save money on labor costs.
Well, you say we'll see that in a minute, but I think we'll probably see that tomorrow because we're going to get this sent over to the editor so we can start working on it. But the idea is that there's so much to cover, and the bot story, just like this video, is just getting started. So guys, come on back tomorrow. Check us out. Cern will be joining us, I assume, unless he unexpectedly disconnects as soon as this ends. In the comments, what did we miss? What did we misunderstand? What's your favorite example of automation you've seen that you just got to share? And everybody else, like, subscribe, do the usual things. Stay tuned and juicy. And I cannot wait to hear from you, clever robots, in the thrilling follow-up part 2 of this series.